Good morning, good afternoon to everybody who is already joined. I will wait 1-2 minutes more. I see people are joining and dropping in. We will start this event shortly. Hi, Sarai, and hi, everybody. We are still waiting, maybe 1 more minute, and then we will start. Hi, Geneviève. So I also see we have all panelists for the first round, and we have a good number of participants already in. So I think we can start, also not to lose time. Very warm welcome again to everybody to today's event on the implementation of the Declaration on the Rights of Peasants and Other People Working in Rural Areas at the European and national level to promote sustainable and resilient food systems. My name is Sibyl Diren. I'm with FIAN International based in Geneva. And first of all, I want to give some technical advices and information. There is interpretation in English, French, and Spanish. So please choose the channel you would like to listen to. Also, I would like to remind everyone that this webinar is recorded and will also be made available afterwards. We have 2 chats. One is the chat some of you are already using. Please use it to introduce yourself, the webinar chat, but also you can use it for any technical issues and you will get support there. There is another chat, the Q&A chat. This is only for questions, comments to the panelists' intervention. After the intervention of the panelists, everybody also has the option to speak by raising their hand. And last but not least, also, I kindly ask everyone to speak slowly and also respect timing and spell out acronyms to facilitate the work of our interpreters. This so far for the practical technical issues. This event is organized by the European Coordination of Vía Campesina, ECVC, Mundubat and FIAN International, and it's organized in the framework of 2 projects. One is Rebooting the Food System, which is co-funded by the European Union, and the other one is the project called Promoting the Achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals through the Promotion of UNDROP and Food Sovereignty, run by Mundubat and co-funded by Generalidad Valenciana, Cooperación Valenciana, and the government of Navarra. And the main goal of today's event is to discuss the recommendations, the policy recommendations by ECVC with our panelists and with key representatives of the European Union that we have among us as speakers today. And we want to discuss really how to implement the UNDROP at the European and national level, as said before, in order to promote and protect peasants' rights and to create a resilient and sustainable food system based on food sovereignty and right to food for all. The last thing I would like to do is giving you a quick overview on the agenda. and then we jump right into the listening to our panelists. So we divided the event in two sections, a first panel and a second panel. And the first panel will be opened by Jean Devenant, member of ECVC Coordination Committee and also of the ECVC EU articulation. He will open the panel by presenting the policy recommendation on the implementation on UNDROP at the European level. Then we will hear Geneviève Savigny, the chair of the UN Working Group on the Rights of Peasants and People Working in Rural Areas, followed by Sarah Martin, the local area coordinator of Mundubat. She will give us, she will talk about the importance of the implementation of UNDROP in the Spanish state, also giving us the perspective from the ground, voices from the ground. And the last speaker in the first panel is Christophe Collet from the Geneva Academy, who will talk about states' obligation to implement UNDROP in their national, but also in their foreign policy. And he will give us an example of Switzerland. After the first four panelists spoke, we will open for question and answer and have about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes to answer questions before we go to the second part, where we will listen to the reaction of two key representatives of the EU. So we are really happy to have with us Munir Satouri, the president of the Subcommittee on Human Rights and of the European Parliament. And we'll also have Elena Schubert, the Equality Coordinator of the Directorate General for Agriculture and Rural Development of the European Commission. Quite long titles. We're very happy to have these two speakers here. And after their intervention, again, we will open for question, comments, and answers before we close. And Ia Ebralice will close for ECVC side the event at about 1:30. That is the plan for today. I'm excited to start jumping into the first panel. And I'm really happy to see Jean with us, who had some unexpected troubles today, but can be with us. And Jean, I would like to give you the floor to present the policy recommendations. Please, the floor is yours.
Yes, sure. Thank you very much, Sibyl. Sorry, everyone. I just had a little issue with transport, so I might be a little bit lost, but I will try my best. So yeah, I am a member of the board of ECVC, of the Coordination Committee of ECVC in Europe. This is the European representation of Vía Campesina. And I'm also mainly a farmer in the Basque Country, producing seedlings and vegetables. So we are here today to talk about the UNDROP, so the United Nations Declaration on the right of peasants and people living in rural areas. First, maybe to contextualize a little bit all this, to say that according to the data we have from FAO, etc., worldwide we have above 80% of the farms on this planet that are small-scale farms. Basically, the model and the kind of farms that we represent and defend in Vía Campesina. And so these 80% of the so it's around 600 million farms on the planet. So above 80% are small-scale. They use only 12% of the land, available land, agricultural land, I mean. But on these 12% of land, they manage to produce around 35% of the food that is being consumed by humanity. So that means that they are really efficient and that they can produce very good food on limited amount of land compared with other agricultural models. But these small-scale farmers face a lot of discrimination and human rights violations. They have to face a lot of issues regarding access to land, as I just said, but also access to other means of production like water, seeds, etc., access to markets. They also face often harsh competition from industrial models, and they suffer, as I said, a lot of discrimination. So this is why basically the UNDROP was made for. It was to protect this specific group of people, so peasants and people living in rural areas, as they face specific problems. So just a little bit of history maybe to start. So the UNDROP was, since the beginning, something very important for Via Campesina International. So that's the global farmers movement. Just to remind that La Via Campesina International represents more than 200 million farmers on the planet, on all continents. And that, as I said, we represent the small and medium-scale farmers on the planet. So the work on the UNDROP started in Via Campesina in the early 2000s, thanks to the push, the willingness of one of our member organizations in Indonesia called SPI, Serikat Petani Indonesia, which is a farmers union in Indonesia, and they pushed for Via Campesina to work at international level on creating a declaration to protect the rights of farmers and people living in rural areas. So that's how everything started. So after a few years of working inside Via Campesina with all the members organization of the movement, and with partners and allies, including some of them here today, we reached a first draft, I would say, of this international declaration that was presented to United Nations in 2009. So that's when the official process with the UN started. Then from 2009 until 2018, there was a whole process inside of the UN bodies and institutions. First, a group was created in 2012, an intergovernmental group within the Human Rights Committee of the UN in Geneva. And so this intergovernmental group started working with Via Campesina and our allies on the draft that we proposed to slowly make it an official UN document. And that was achieved in 2018 when it was presented to the General Assembly of the United Nations in New York. And it was adopted with a large support of countries, meaning a huge majority of countries voted in favor. Some countries abstained and very little countries voted against. So according to United Nations rules and international law, as this was adopted by the UN, it is now an international law text that is protecting small and medium-sized farmers on the planet. And it's a text that we can refer to and use whenever necessary to protect the interests and and fight against inequities and or violations of rights of this specific group of people. So basically, I say mainly farmers and peasants, but also people living in rural areas. So that's also include indigenous group, small-scale fishermen, pastors, etc., etc. So that was adopted in 2018. What we saw is that, as usual with this kind of international text, it needs follow-up. It needs to be, we need more work for implementing this text in a very concrete way. So that's why we asked again within the Human Rights Committee of the UN if it was possible to create an expert group, and that was accepted, and the expert group was created in 2024, so last year, with 5 experts, and the objective of this working group is to follow and to monitor the implementation of the UNDROP. But I will not go into details here because we're really lucky to have today Geneviève Savigny. She is one of the 5 experts of this group. So she will maybe present better than me the work they are doing on the implementation and the follow-up of this adoption. Just also to say that it was a very unique process, bottom up, because it really came from the farmers and from the peasant and from the ground, all the way up to the highest institutions of the UN. So that makes it also a very interesting example of direct democracy and how people and right subjects can actually fight and do things for their interests. And so that was a really interesting work. Also underlining that it created collective rights, which is quite interesting for us as farmers, because we often face collective violations of rights, especially in places where the agriculture is managed in a communitary base, that indeed then the community is impacted as a whole. And also say that as it was adopted in the UN, there is now a clear obligation for states and institutions to actually apply this UNDROP and make sure that the rights of the peasant and the people living in rural areas are respected properly. So coming now to my second part, what about Europe and what can we do? And so this is where ECVC, so the European Coordination Via Campesina, comes in. So that's the regional branch for Europe of the global movement Via Campesina. And so since it was, well, since the beginning, obviously, we worked with our comrades and partners and allies on this declaration. And since 2018, we've been trying to push for the European countries and the European Union to work on that declaration and to actually make national and European laws and processes respecting the UNDROP and not violating any of the rights that are in this international declaration. Because just to remind, in the international system of law, UNDROP as a UN text is above most legislation and policies at national or regional level. So that means that actually any policy that a country is developing for agriculture should respect basically the guidelines of the UNDROP and should not violate any of the articles of the UNDROP. So this is what actually we're trying to do now. We're working both with institutions, with allies, with NGOs, obviously with farmers, and also with law actors from the law, like jurists and etc., to see how to implement properly this declaration. It's not always easy because we need to connect and to coordinate with other international processes, like the United Nations Decade on Family Farming, like the different texts that are there in favor of defending children, women, indigenous groups, etc., etc. So it's quite a complex topic. That is also why we're really happy to have this expert group supporting us in all this. In the European Union, let's just remember that we lost 25% of our farms between 2005 and 2020, going from 12 million to 9 million farms. And most of the farms disappearing are actually small and medium-scale farms, where, for example, but still 66% of farms in Europe are still below 5 hectares. So it means the vast majority of farmers and farms in Europe are very small-scale farms, and these are the farms that are disappearing at an alarming rate. And we think that this is linked somehow with the UNDROP, because we think that these farms disappear because their rights are not respected and because the context is not good for this kind of model of small-scale farming. So that's why we now ask the European Union and European states in general, not only from the European Union, to promote and to work more on this UNDROP declaration and on the right of farmers in order to avoid and reverse this alarming trend of farms disappearance, especially now as we know that the generational renewal being a new priority in a lot of places. We think that UNDROP could be actually a good tool to make generational renewal better and easier. A few concrete recommendations, and I will close then. So recommendation for any actor would be promotion of this declaration and training, because farmers need to be aware that this exists and that they can refer to the UNDROP to protect their rights. So promotion, training, and communication is really important to raise awareness, especially, as I said, for all actors, but beneficiaries must be included. We need to make public action and policies coherent with the UNDROP, as I said, because it's an international text. So institutional and legislative bodies must be aware of that and be careful when developing new laws and new legislation and policies. Also, in any trial or juridic processes going on, we're trying to quote the UNDROP. So we have jurisprudence. And so slowly it's more used and more efficient to protect the beneficiaries and the small-scale and medium-scale farmers and people living in rural areas. And then we also want to remind that this small and medium-scale farmers need to be protected from other actors that might impact their rights, and especially transnational companies that we know are really often behind these violations of the rights of small and medium-scale farmers. So that's also why the binding treaty process actually going on in Geneva is also something we're following that we think is important to support. And we hope that at some point, some countries from Europe will support this binding treaty process. And then a very few recommendations specifically for the European Union. We are really happy to have today some distinguished hosts from the European Union. So again, same as for the other, we need to have more coherence between the UNDROP and the European Union laws and policies on farming, knowing that the CAP, the Common Agriculture Policy, is one of the main and the most important part of the legislation of the European Union. At least it's one of the main budget. So we think this should definitely be respecting the UNDROP. And so maybe the new CAP that's coming for 2027 might be a good moment to try to include some elements of the UNDROP in these policies. We also would like the European Union to respect more the UNDROP when signing free trade agreements. The Mercosur, for example, is clearly violating most of the articles of the UNDROP, both for farmers in Europe and for small and medium-sized farmers also in South America. So these free trade agreements are definitely not aligned with the UNDROP, and this is something that the European Union needs to acknowledge and work on. And then more concretely, we also hope that the DG Agri, so the General Directorate of Agriculture of the European Union, could have a special group working on UNDROP and on the implementation of the UNDROP at European level. We're really happy to collaborate on that if they want to create such a subgroup. And finally, we would like in general as ECVC to be more involved for democratic and participation motives in any consultation happening, especially in the Agri-Fish Council, where we are usually excluded, even if we, as I said, we represent the vast majority of small and medium-sized farmers in Europe. So all these are our recommendations that I took out of the report, the document that ECVC released. So I invite, obviously, everybody to have a look at this very good publication, very concrete, with a lot of examples and data. And I will close here and leave the floor for the next exponents. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jean, also for giving us again a bit an insight in the context, the broader context of peasants that led to the development of UNDROP, and also emphasizing the uniqueness of this bottom-up process, but then also coming again and summarizing very well the best, the key recommendations for all actors, but also for the European Union. Thank you so much for that. I will pass on to our second speaker, staying also very close to UNDROP and the process. Happy to have Geneviève Saligny with us, the chair of the UN Working Group on the Declaration on the Rights of Peasants and Other People Working in Rural Areas. Please, Geneviève, the floor is yours.
Bonjour, je vais parler en français, donc merci aux traducteurs, traductrices. Voilà, donc je vais vous présenter un petit peu quel est le rôle actuel donc, de ce groupe de travail pour la défense des droits des paysans, des paysannes et autres personnes travaillant en zone rurale. Donc là, globalement, ce groupe est là pour mettre en œuvre les conclusions et les contenus de l'UNDROP. Ces groupes de travail font partie des procédures spéciales. Alors, ce qu'on appelle les procédures spéciales, ce sont des experts indépendants ou des groupes d'experts de 5 personnes qui vont être chargés de mettre en œuvre soit un droit particulier, soit de mettre en œuvre les droits dans des pays particuliers. Puisqu'il y a actuellement, dans le système des Nations Unies des droits humains, 46 mandats spéciaux, procédures spéciales, donc 46 mandats thématiques et 14 par pays. En ce qui concerne les droits des paysans, c'est quelque chose de nouveau. Ça a été décidé par une résolution du Conseil des droits de l'homme en septembre ou octobre 2023. Et en 2024, le groupe a été créé. Ce groupe donc, contient 5 personnes. Donc en fait, nous sommes 5 personnes. Il y a 2 juristes, une responsable d'ONG, un anthropologue et une paysanne, donc moi-même. Et en 2 mots, bon, je suis du milieu agricole, j'étais paysanne en élevage, je suis maintenant retraitée et aussi membre de ECVC. Donc c'est avec ce bagage que j'ai été engagée dans ce mandat, qui sont des mandats bénévoles. Hein, donc nous ne sommes pas non plus Nous ne sommes pas du personnel de l'ONU, nous sommes des personnes indépendantes, comme le nom l'indique, et qui sommes là pour veiller à la bonne réalisation.
Lost Geneviève. Let's wait a moment and oh no, we lost her completely.
No, she's here.
Yeah, she's coming back. Sorry, Geneviève, we lost you, but you are back.
J'ai l'impression que j'ai été coupée, je ne comprends pas. Est-ce que vous...
It seems that the connection is not perfectly stable. You are frozen again. Let's wait a moment and hope the connection will come back. Maybe if you can hear us, Geneviève, you can turn off the video and we try to have only the audio. That can help. She dropped off. Just give her one more chance to come in and connect. Because it would be really nice to have her first, and then we go to the national level. Geneviève? Geneviève, maybe you can turn off the camera and try only the audio.
Non, je pense que ce n'est pas un problème de réseau, c'est plus compliqué.
Ok.
Est-ce que je peux continuer? Je suis désolée pour les participants. Donc, quel va être notre rôle? Bon, il faut savoir qu'au sein de l'ONU, les processus sont assez codifiés. Donc, la façon que nous allons avoir de défendre les paysannes, les paysans et de mettre en œuvre l'UNDROP, ça va être cadré donc par cette résolution. Le travail, ça consiste essentiellement donc à faire connaître l'UNDROP, de faire connaître la déclaration, et puis de veiller à ce que les différents pays, les différentes institutions internationales pertinentes, ainsi que les paysans et les paysannes eux-mêmes, soient au courant de cette déclaration et veillent à sa mise en œuvre et à sa réalisation. Les outils dont nous bénéficions, donc qui sont ces outils un peu codifiés, c'est qu'il y a bien sûr ce plaidoyer et la sensibilisation du public, comme nous pouvons le faire là aujourd'hui dans ce webinaire, et je remercie ECVC, FIAN et Mundubat de l'avoir organisé. Et c'est également des visites de pays, donc théoriquement 2 visites par an de 15 jours, pour voir les situations particulières donc des personnes qui nous concernent, donc pour nous le monde agricole, paysan, des producteurs au sens large. Nous avons les communications. Donc ça, c'est quelque chose peut-être qui est plus compliqué à expliquer, mais où en fait des personnes ou des groupes victimes de violations ou de discriminations peuvent nous les présenter. Et le groupe de travail est chargé de faire des communications avec les États ou avec les entités donc responsables ou qui sont responsables de ces allégations de violation. Donc c'est quelque chose là aussi d'assez codifié. Ensuite, nous avons l'ensemble des conseils que nous allons être amenés à donner à différents partenaires, donc les différents pays, de façon à ce qu'ils puissent mettre en œuvre au mieux les droits des paysans. En ce qui concerne le contenu, bon, ceci se fait aussi à travers des rapports, donc rapports auprès du Conseil des droits de l'homme et rapports aussi auprès de l'ONU, enfin de l'Assemblée générale des Nations unies, ce qu'on appelle la troisième commission qui concerne les droits sociaux, économiques et sociaux. Je crois que ce qui est important pour notre groupe de travail, c'est déjà de bien faire comprendre à quel point, déjà, quand on parle de paysans, c'est très vaste. C'est paysannes, paysans, l'ensemble des personnes qui font ou qui cherchent à faire une production alimentaire à petite échelle et qui entretiennent avec la terre une relation particulière et qui en dépendent. Donc, c'est aussi les gens qui sont les pêcheurs à petite échelle, cueilleurs, pastoralistes, personnes sans terre, travailleurs agricoles, travailleurs ruraux, qui vont avoir cette relation à la terre pour la production alimentaire. Donc, c'est aussi dans ce sens-là qu'il me semble que c'est très important dans le cadre du débat sur des systèmes alimentaires durables, de façon à ce que l'alimentation soit produite aussi par un nombre important de petites entités qui assurent la sécurité alimentaire et qui peuvent aussi avoir non seulement ce rôle social qui a été décrit par le premier présentateur, mais également un rôle d'alimentation. En ce qui concerne donc notre travail, donc concrètement, nous avons fait un premier rapport pour présenter nos objectifs et comment nous pensions travailler, quelle allait être notre ligne de conduite. Et notamment, dans cette ligne de conduite, il y a cette interaction vraiment très importante que nous souhaitons mettre en place. Alors, autant avec les porteurs de droits, paysannes, paysans, mais aussi avec tous les représentants des États et leurs organisations collectives, comme c'est le cas avec l'Union européenne. Donc, nous avons fait ce premier rapport en 2024 et en 2025, donc les rapports que nous allons présenter concernent l'état du monde rural, enfin l'état des droits des paysannes et des paysans aujourd'hui, hein, maintenant 6 ans après l'adoption de l'UNDROP, et puis notamment le droit à la participation. Et pour cela, nous avons lancé un appel à contribution, donc je me permets de le signaler puisque c'est tout nouveau, et ça va nous permettre aussi de rentrer dans notre travail et de mieux présenter la situation paysanne et comment les droits sont mis en œuvre actuellement et comment on peut améliorer ça, en commençant par ce qui nous est semblé peut-être le plus universel, c'est la question de participer, que tous les gens concernés puissent participer aux décisions qui les concernent.
Thank you very much, Geneviève, also for describing us the role you play now as a working group on the rights of peasants and other people working in rural areas, and also reminding everyone on the most recent calls you just opened. I think we can also publish it here in the chat so everybody has access to it. Thank you so much for that. We are a little bit late in time, so I will pass over to our next speaker and just kindly remind again to please keep the time. It's 5 minutes for each speaker, so make sure we have time for the discussion afterwards. So I'll give you the floor, Sarai Martin, local area coordinator of Mundubat, to talk about the implementation in Spain. Please, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, ricasco. Gracias, yo hablaré en español. Primeramente, y voy a intentar ceñirme a los 5 minutos, así que voy a empezar. Primero agradecer a la Coordinación Europea Vía Campesina y a FIAN International por este espacio, que creemos que desde Mundubat es importante trabajar en red y poder ir juntas en esto, pues porque bueno, las cosas se trabajan en red y en plataformas, y a mí ver tanta gente aquí pues me hace mucha ilusión y ganas de seguir trabajando por la declaración de la UNDROP. Quizás nosotras, como veis, nuestra ponencia se llama Voces del Terreno, que va un poco vinculada al trabajo práctico de Mundubat que hacemos no solo a nivel local, aquí en Euskal Herria o en el Estado español, sino también a nivel global en los países donde Mundubat trabaja proyectos de desarrollo y cooperación, y en los que tenemos también acciones de soberanía alimentaria. Yo soy Saray, soy coordinadora del área local, pero quería nombrar también a Nelo, que es el experto en soberanía alimentaria de Mundubat, que está también por ahí, y que bueno, que es ahí el alma de la soberanía alimentaria dentro de Mundubat. Simplemente decir que desde hace 3 décadas Mundubat lleva con el esfuerzo y el compromiso de defender los derechos humanos, la equidad de género, el feminismo, la justicia social y la soberanía alimentaria, y en eso seguimos. Y hoy, en un principio, mi intervención, pues quiero contaros un poquito pues esa colaboración que hacemos con otras organizaciones campesinas y agrarias de base en la implementación de la UNDROP en el Estado español y también a nivel global de nuestro trabajo práctico. Para Mundubat el campesinado es uno de los pilares fundamentales de nuestra sociedad, por lo que trabajamos con el colectivo campesino, especialmente también con las mujeres, porque entendemos que parten de una situación más vulnerable. Y bueno, tenemos numerosos desafíos de trabajo, como es la falta del acceso a la tierra, el relevo generacional, el desafío del cambio climático, tener ingresos dignos, lograr precios justos, acceder a mercados locales, evitar la explotación laboral, políticas públicas que a veces priorizan el agronegocio y no la agricultura familiar y sostenible. Entonces, desde nuestro accionar, como os comentaba, trabajamos en red desde en Euskal Herria, fuera de Euskal Herria y con las organizaciones de la Vía Campesina y en todo el Estado español y, como comentamos, bueno, pues también en otros países. ¿Qué hacemos? Pues hacemos desde medios materiales, desde diferentes documentaciones, investigaciones, como eventos, formaciones y articulación en redes sobre los derechos reconocidos en la Declaración de la UNDROP. Trabajamos también bajo los preceptos del feminismo campesino popular, la diversidad, nos importa el relevo generacional también y siempre planteándolo con estas organizaciones de las que pertenecen de la vía campesina a nivel local global. Y sobre todo tenemos intención de, a través de esos materiales y formaciones, seguir profundizando y trabajando sobre la implementación de la UNDROP. Como decíamos, las mujeres campesinas, el papel de las mujeres es muy importante, primeramente en la producción de alimentos y de la vida, como en la preservación de la biodiversidad, pues porque son base de la tierra las mujeres en todos los países, ¿no? Por lo que tenemos también proyectos específicos con mujeres de género y de empoderamiento de mujeres campesinas y rurales. Como para ir un poco más, porque se me va el tiempo, al detalle de la UNDROP que hemos hecho y que no hemos hecho como aportar a este instrumento internacional, ¿no? Desde Mundubat, por ejemplo, hemos entrado en alianza de coordinación con diferentes publicaciones. De hecho, tenéis el estudio de renta agraria en Euskadi, que lo podéis ver en la web de Mundubat, que se hizo en colaboración con Vizcaya. O podéis ver el estudio sobre criminalización del campesinado en Honduras, que se hizo conjuntamente con la CLOC Vía Campesina Centroamérica y Honduras y la Central de Trabajadores del Campo CNTC. Y bueno, también como os hemos comentado, hacemos eventos, tanto presenciales como virtuales, como el interés de participar hoy también en esta ponencia contándonos un poquito nuestro trabajo. Por ejemplo, el Seminario Internacional sobre Derechos del Campesinado, que se realizó el 2017 en Vizcaya, y la jornada, por ejemplo, en Madrid sobre la Declaración en abril del 2018. Todo esto se viene organizando, quizás por cercanía, con organizaciones de la vía campesina más cercanas, las organizaciones ibéricas, como son la COAG, en Vizcaya, el Sindicato Labrego, el Sindicato Andaluz, SATSOC, y la Confederación Nacional de Agricultores de Portugal y agricultoras. Entonces, simplemente comentar que uno de nuestros objetivos es seguir en esta línea, en este compromiso de generar conciencia crítica también en la ciudadanía y sobre todo involucrar a la ciudadanía. Por ello, nuestro hincapié va a ser seguir haciendo acciones de sensibilización, acciones de movilización para que las personas, no solo las personas o el campesinado, que está, bueno, que está relacionado con el campo y la tierra, no solo ellas conozcan la UNDROP, sino que la sociedad en general conozcan esta declaración y demande también junto al campesinado. También decir que acabamos ahora con la Europa Vía Campesina, hemos también hecho una formación y difusión interna sobre un webinario en el que ha habido también una gran participación y actualmente estamos elaborando estudios sobre el marco normativo, tanto local como estatal y como europeo. Y bueno, la idea es, como decimos, también fomentar el uso de declaración de litigios estratégicos. Vamos hacia esa línea también de trabajo. Trabajamos conjuntamente, nos parece interesante decir, y ya voy cumpliendo el tiempo, pero hay mucho que decir. Ya un minutito más, y porque me parece importante destacar que también trabajamos con el Observatorio de Derechos Campesinos y Políticas Públicas en América Latina y el Caribe. Y a través de ahí se ha elaborado el informe de derechos campesinos y políticas en 3 casos paradigmáticos en América Latina, que también lo podéis encontrar en nuestra web. Y bueno, ahora mismo estamos organizando, me parece importante decirlo, porque es uno de los eventos de más importancia que se van a hacer este año, en el 2025, a finales en Valencia, que la idea es querer fomentar un espacio de encuentro, articulación y reflexión en torno a esta temática a finales de año en Valencia. Y bueno, un poquito eso sería. Agradecer este espacio, sobre todo a las personas que estáis ahí organizando. Sabemos que no es un camino fácil, pero yo creo que es algo justo, que lo tenemos claro, que hay amenazas constantes, pero eso no quiere decir que se puedan lograr. Y animo también a reflexionar y actuar desde nuestras decisiones diarias, desde nuestros trabajos, de nuestras vidas personales, porque al final, pues, la vida siempre tiene que estar por delante. Es que ricasco, gracias.
Thank you very much, Sarai. You almost made it in the 5 minutes, and I also apologize that we ask you to, to be short, and we ask you not to speak too quickly, and then also to somehow summarize all this this broad range of work you're doing. Thank you very much for sharing that. I think just to highlight, I mean, this importance of also training that you mentioned, raising critical awareness in the public, in organization, it's key that you, together with other organizations, that we are doing that to promote the UNDROP. And as we heard from the recommendations that demands, of course, we also hope that governments and also EU actors also help more to promote and make the declaration known. With this, I will give the floor to our last speaker in the first panel, Christophe Collet from Geneva Academy, also on states' obligation now to implement UNDROP, and also a short example of Switzerland. Also, Christophe, please try to
Thank you. Thank you.
5 minutes.
Thank you, Sibyl. Yes, thanks for the invitation. So I have shared in the chat some websites. So the first one is a website we created 3 years ago with La Vía Campesina, FIAN, and CETIM on the declaration. It's in Spanish, English, and French. And we try to put all the information that exists on the implementation of the declaration in the different parts of the world, with also many publications, training materials. The second website I have sent is a link to we have a project since many years on the right to seats in Europe. And we try to promote the protection of the right to seats in Europe now this year in the context of the negotiation of the seat commercialization regulation. And so we, of course, UNDROP, all UNDROP is based at the end on the right to food. It's how it came about in the UN system. And the right to food is binding for all EU countries, and as well as Switzerland, in which I work. But it's the binding for every EU country, the right to food. And so when you interpret the right to food now, and there is jurisprudence in many countries about that, now you have to take UNDROP into account. So for example, the right to seats in Article 19 of UNDROP has to be a part of the right to food of peasants. And we hope that the negotiation and at the EU level will recognize the right to seats of peasants for the first time. Then on the example of Switzerland, so we created a Friends of the Declaration coalition in Switzerland a few years ago, and we did a study on the foreign policy of Switzerland and UNDROP. We highlighted some recommendations, for example, on how to include UNDROP in trade issues, in development cooperation, but also, for example, in free trade agreements. Jean was referring to that. So free trade agreements, Switzerland is signing with countries, and Switzerland is the one pushing for intellectual property rights over seats. And so we made many things with the government to try to make them stop doing that because it leads to violations of the right to food and the right to seeds in other countries. Another example that I have also sent is an example of a study we did on the implementation of UNDROP in Switzerland at the national level. And so we have some key issues that are important, like the fair prices for the product of peasants, and also social security of peasant women. So we for example, presented a report to the United Nations in 2023, and there was a recommendation to Switzerland to create social security for peasant women because it doesn't exist for the moment. And Switzerland accepted this recommendation, and so now we're working with the parliament to see how it will be effective, put in place. But there should be now social security of peasant women because of the work on UNDROP that was done in the last years by this friend of the Declaration Coalition. Voilà. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Christoph, to give us the insight also in Switzerland, and also in the chat you see where you can find the studies and more information. You can use, I just want to remind that we have a chat for question and answer. So far, I don't see questions, but you can use that. If there is now a question we can open for questions, we will keep it a bit shorter, so maybe just 1 or 2 questions, and then we go directly to the institutional reaction to part 2, and at the end we will have a bit more time to discussion, just that we can hear the reactions, and then we will open, and then everybody, all participants can raise the hand, and can also, we will open the mic so they can ask questions, just to clarify that. So if there is immediately a question now, we can take 1 to 2 questions, and I see, yeah. I don't see all, but I see a hand. Yes, I see Gertrude Falk. Please, Gertrude.
Yes, first, thanks to you all for this very interesting inputs and insights of your work. One question for me, because I see a different policy processes on agroecology. So I would like to know how is your work on defending peasants' rights linked to maybe parallel processes on agroecology? Thank you.
Thank you, Gertrude. I understand it's not to a specific speaker, so I'll just open for a response to that question. Who would like to take it from our speakers? I see Geneviève, please.
Je veux bien en dire un mot. Je crois qu'il est clair que dans la déclaration, le droit des paysans s'applique dans le cadre d'une utilisation de la terre qui est respectueuse de la terre, qui s'inscrit complètement dans l'agroécologie, qui est d'ailleurs un mot qui est utilisé à plusieurs endroits dans le texte lui-même. Le droit à la terre, le droit de développer des systèmes alimentaires qui sont des systèmes paysans agroécologiques. Donc vraiment, le lien est fait entre l'environnement et l'UNDROP et la défense des paysans. C'est d'ailleurs un des arguments que nous souhaitons mettre en avant pour l'ensemble des États. Défendre l'UNDROP, c'est aussi défendre un environnement sain pour l'ensemble des citoyens. Donc, les liens sont très forts.
Thank you very much, Geneviève, for that response. I don't see any other hand, and I think it's a good, we are in time. We go to the second part, to the institutional reaction, and then at the end, as I said before, we have a bit more time for all. Also, if you still think of a question for the panelists, the speakers of the first round, you can still do that, and you can react to the institutional reaction to the policy demands. So please, let's start giving the floor to Munir Satouri, the president of the Subcommittee on Human Rights of the European Parliament. We're really glad to have you here, Munir Satouri. The floor is yours, please. We can't hear you, sorry. still not. We can see you and your mic is open, but
Est-ce que là, vous m'entendez?
oui.
Ah, super. Bon, eh ben, j'étais en train de dire que je suis très heureux d'être parmi vous ce matin. Depuis là où j'exerce mes responsabilités de président de la commission, de la sous-commission droits humains, je considère que l'UNDROP est une réalisation historique dans la promotion et la protection des droits de l'homme. Il reconnaît les droits à la souveraineté alimentaire, l'accès à la terre et aux ressources naturelles, et un environnement sain. Et vous pensez bien que ce dernier point, pour l'élu écologiste que je suis, il est primordial. La mise en œuvre de l'UNDROP s'aligne sur nos priorités actuelles à la sous-commission. La sous-commission s'est fixée, entre autres, comme objectif l'élaboration et le suivi des politiques extérieures de l'Union européenne, le fait de garantir les droits aux peuples autochtones, d'assurer la protection des droits humains dans le contexte des entreprises et d'assurer la protection de l'environnement et du droit à la terre qui sont essentiels pour le développement durable. Notre rôle est donc de surveiller la politique extérieure de l'Union européenne. Depuis notre sous-commission, nous nous efforcerons d'assurer la cohérence entre les politiques de l'UE et les principes de l'UNDROP. Nous continuerons à suivre de près la mise en œuvre de ces politiques afin de veiller à ce qu'elles soient conformes aux engagements de l'Union européenne en matière de droits de l'homme, y compris à l'égard des paysans, en particulier dans les domaines tels que les conditions de travail équitables, la protection de l'environnement et l'accès à la terre. Le jour même où soutient cette conférence organisée par vous aujourd'hui, la Commission européenne doit lancer sa vision pour l'agriculture. Il s'agit de la feuille de route répondant aux recommandations faites dans le cadre du dialogue stratégique sur l'agriculture qui a remis son rapport en 2024. Cette feuille de route devrait examiner comment assurer la compétitivité et la durabilité à long terme du secteur agricole européen. Il faudra donc s'assurer que les droits des paysans soient dûment pris en compte dans la mise en œuvre de cette vision pour l'agriculture, conformément aux exigences de l'UNDROP. Par rapport aux accords commerciaux, il est essentiel, de mon point de vue, de veiller à ce que tous les accords de l'UE avec les pays tiers soient conformes aux valeurs et aux droits fondamentaux de l'Union européenne. Cela signifie à mes yeux également que les accords de commerce et d'investissement de l'UE doivent respecter les droits des communautés rurales, conformément à l'UNDROP, et contribuer aux objectifs plus larges de développement durable dans la réduction de la pauvreté. Cela nécessitera sans doute à des analyses d'impact systématiques et des mécanismes de suivi renforcés afin d'identifier et d'atténuer les effets négatifs potentiels sur le droit des paysans. Sur le plan de la responsabilité des entreprises et des droits de l'homme, la directive sur le devoir de vigilance des entreprises en matière de durabilité offre, selon moi, une occasion importante d'intégrer les considérations relatives aux droits de l'homme dans la pratique des entreprises, et y compris le droit des paysans. Bien que la version finale ne contienne pas de référence explicite à l'UNDROP, et sachez que je le regrette, notre sous-commission droit ne sera vigilante pour veiller à ce que la directive soit mise en œuvre de manière à renforcer la responsabilité des entreprises et à protéger le droit des paysannes et des paysans tel que prévu par l'UNDROP. En conclusion, si j'ai encore 2 minutes, j'aimerais souligner la pertinence d'intégrer la perspective des droits humains dans le travail des institutions européennes autour de l'agriculture. Nous devons veiller à ce que chaque fois que les questions agricoles sont abordées, les institutions européennes le fassent en cohérence avec les dispositifs de l'UNDROP. La mise en œuvre de l'UNDROP au niveau européen serait l'occasion de réaffirmer le rôle moteur joué par l'UE dans la promotion du droit humain, la démocratie et de l'état de droit pour des paysans et une communauté agricole. Bien que des progrès significatifs aient été accomplis, il reste encore beaucoup à faire pour traduire les principes de la déclaration en action et en politique concrète. Soutenir la demande de Vía Campesina que la Direction générale de l'agriculture Développement rural de la Commission européenne, la DG Agri, créer une unité spécifique chargée des droits des paysans et des droits dans l'agriculture est pour moi une priorité et sachez que nous la porterons au sein des institutions européennes. Le Parlement européen, sachez-le, est prêt à travailler avec toutes les parties prenantes, États membres, institutions de l'UE, société civile, partenaires sociaux et partenaires européens et partenaires internationaux, afin de veiller à ce que le droit des paysannes et des paysans et des travailleurs ruraux dans le monde soit protégé et qu'ils puissent jouer pleinement leur rôle dans la construction d'un système alimentaire durable, résilient, inclusif pour toutes et tous.
Thank you very much, Munir Satouri. It's great to hear your strong support for the declaration and that you reiterate also the subcommittee's commitment to implement the declaration in different processes, also reminding us the objectives and also the importance of the responsibility and obligation of corporations. Thank you very much for your reactions and for your words. I will give directly the floor to our second speakers before we have more time also to react and exchange. We're very happy to have with us Elena Schubert, the Equality Coordinator of the Directorate General for Agriculture and Rural Development of the European Commission. Thank you for being here. The floor is yours, Elena Schubert.
Many thanks, Sibylle, for your kind words, and thank you to all organizers for organizing such an important and indeed timely event. It couldn't be timed better. As you know, at this very moment when we speak, my commissioner, Christoph Hansen, is presenting in the press conference the vision for the future agriculture in the European Union. And I had a chance to see where are the priorities of the vision of our future agriculture and farming, and I'm very pleased that it goes in line with the conclusions of your report that is dedicated to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Peasants and other people working in the rural areas. And what I have heard also from previous speakers confirmed that our direction that we have taken in this vision is the right direction and very much in line with your thinking. But before I make some references to the future of CAP, of Common Agricultural Policy, let me say that the principles of non-discrimination and the respect for fundamental rights do feature also in the current Common Agricultural Policy legislative framework and funding. Let me remind, perhaps you're not aware that we have introduced as a novelty social conditionality mechanism that for the first time in the Common Agricultural Policy links CAP payments with the adherence to labor and social rights standards. It concerns the linkage of CAP payments with directives, for example, on work contracts, but also directives of health and safety at work for farm workers. And this is really an important step forward and advance when it comes to the fundamental right for safe working conditions. Also, our CAP payments, as you see, that the biggest part of our budget for Common Agricultural Policy is directed to the direct payments for our farmers. And small-scale farmers also do profit from these payments. We can see for the future how we can improve it, but we should remind ourselves indeed that this is something that the Common Agricultural Policy is doing already. In terms of, I've heard my previous speakers talking about the importance of women farmers and gender equality. I would also like to draw your attention to the fact that for the very first time in the history of CAP, CAP 23-2027 does include specific reference to the importance of enhancement of the position of women in farming. And we have member states that provide higher support under first pillar and under second pillar for women farmers for the first time in the history. And also when it comes to the rights and fundamental rights, the healthy environment, CAP has strengthened the environmental dimension because we understand the farmers and peasants are indeed stewards of the environment. And we did this in the way. Now we will see in the future how we can do it in a way that it does not impose additional burden for our farmers, but it can, that we strike the right balance between the environment and between the well-being of farmers and their workers' conditions. And also rural development interventions are there in place by CAP to help to create enabling working and living conditions in rural areas for our farmers, for our peasants, for our rural population. And in terms of simplification, we do believe that we are on the right track when it comes to the burden and administrative burden for farmers. Our Commissioner Hans has just also communicated also today in the press conference that it's important to put forward incentives rather than impose rules and new regulations on farmers. And we will see that the vision that has been just adopted today will open the way towards this incentivizing rather than putting additional administrative burden on our farmers. So just to conclude on the recommendations that you put forward, we do agree with that, but on the other hand, we should be aware of that what CAP has already done in terms of fundamental rights and non-discrimination for farmers. For the vision, I'm going to be very, very brief. I'm aware of the time. Just to say very, very simple, that in the future, we aim for having a simpler CAP, more targeted CAP, and the support indeed, and in line with what has been said already today, will be targeted towards those who are most in need of this support, and these are small and medium-scale farmers. Indeed, we are also alerted about the situation that we are witnessing disappearance of small farms. The mention from 25 to 2020, from 12 million to 9 million farmers. Indeed, we want to stop this trend. Indeed, the priority of our commissioner and the new and the vision is on the generational renewal. We are going to work on making farming attractive for young farmers, for farmers to be able and to create the environment where farmers can operate without too much administrative burden. So that's all from my side. Very quickly, I know that I'm aware of the time. I could speak longer, but yeah, I tried to do this today. Thank you.
Thank you also very much to you, Elena Schubert. It's not easy to talk in 5 minutes about such a complex topic. Also, thank you. Also happy to hear that you agree on the demands and also for your additional explanations on some of the novelties of the CAP, some of the things you see as already targeted, but also on the vision for a future, what can be still revised, where there can be revisions made and a future-looking vision. With that, we will open the floor for questions, for comments to everyone in the room. We have about 20 minutes for that session, so we are good in time. Happy to see that. And I would like to give the floor first to Jean, also for a first comment, and then please just raise your hand and we will open your mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Sibyl. No, I just wanted to react very quickly to our different panelists and then to the institution views from the two last speakers. So first, thank you very much for accepting to join this event and for sharing with us these visions and the work you're doing in the institutions of the European Union. We do acknowledge indeed that the vision of Commissioner Hansen that was just released today is going in the right direction. And just to say that from ECVC, we see that our demands are starting to be heard more in the society in general and in institutions, which is great. So we're really looking forward to deepen our work together and to see how we can effectively and very efficiently help and protect the small and medium-scale farmers in Europe and in the world in general, obviously. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you for that, but I think I will leave the floor for questions now.
Thank you very much, Sean. So anybody who has a question, reaction to the speakers, please, I see. Yes, I see Alfredo Campos. Please, the floor is yours.
Buenos días a todos. Gracias por esta iniciativa de ECVC, Mundbat y FIAN International sobre los derechos campesinos. Creo que es el debate que está sobre la mesa. Yo creo que las instituciones tienen siempre un discurso muy positivo, pero el problema que se ya mostró hoy aquí es que una cosa es el discurso, otra cosa es la práctica. Y la práctica se ve en cada país con las políticas de sus gobiernos. Y creo que es fundamental el trabajo de las organizaciones campesinas junto de cada uno de los gobiernos para que la UNDROP se traduzca en leyes nacionales que respecten los artículos de UNDROP. Y creo que también no es una cosa que se aplique por el todo al mismo momento. Creo que las organizaciones campesinas y sus aliados, los consumidores que benefician de la producción de las pequeñas fincas, necesitan de identificar cuáles son los principales problemas en cada país o en cada región y procurar los cambios necesarios junto de los gobiernos, sea el respeto por la tierra, sea las prácticas comerciales, pero creo que es un proceso de construcción que depende mucho de la relación de fuerzas que hay en cada uno de los países. El fundamental es la traducción de UNDROP en derechos concretos, en políticas públicas concretas en cada uno de los países. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Alfredo. I understand it's not a concrete question to one of the speakers. It's also a comment, and thank you also for sharing this, Alfredo. I see Elena Schubert's hand. Maybe you want to equally respond to that. Just one thing, we were not hearing you very clearly. It was not so loud, the audio, Elena. Maybe if it's possible to get a bit closer or to increase the audio, that would be great. Thank you. And the floor is yours.
Yeah, can you hear me better?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. So I would like to thank you, Alfredo, for his comment. I do understand that it's not easy. You know, with the current model, we have introduced a new delivery model where member states had more possibilities to adjust the choice of interventions depending on their national priorities. But when we talk about agriculture, for example, to attract new generation, Jean has referred to the disappearance of farms. We want young people to get back to farming and to make this profession attractive for them. Well, the biggest problem is access to land and access to finance. And when we talk, for example, about the access to land, this is mostly in the national hands. It's in the member states. It's really, the EU has really very limited space for maneuver. But for example, under the vision, our commissioner has announced that we are going to create EU observatory on farmland. And this EU observatory, for example, will, we hope, shed more light on the land planning and buying in member states. So it could help also member states to make informed decisions when it comes to the regulation on farming in the markets. And then we are going to also review the directive on unfair trading practices. This will hopefully also be helpful. And in general, in 2025, I would like to inform you that we are going to propose a comprehensive simplification package for the current agricultural legislative framework. So we do hope that it will facilitate.
Thank you very much, Elena Schubert. Yeah, this also for all our participants, this was a very concrete question in the question and answer chat from Danielle on the concrete measures the European Commission is taking. Thank you very much, Elena Schubert, for answering that. We have another question in the Q&A chat. I would like to address that before, and then I'll give back to the floor to Jean. I would like, if Dawn is there, if you could maybe you can open your mic and you can ask the question directly in the webinar. So we make sure we understand well, and also you can say if it's a question more concretely to one of the speakers. Please, the floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having this conversation, for creating this space. It's really interesting to hear the different dialogues, and it was really interesting to hear from, I think it was Alberto Campo just now, because again, what he was saying was really important. Look, I know we're talking about the rights, or like different rights that people have, but actually there are these fundamental needs. Like food is a fundamental need to sustain life, like air, like water. And so I don't, if we just focus on it as a right, that's one thing. However, it's always kind of, the things are corrupted by the different systems in which we exist. We're in these pyramid schemes. So what I wanted to know as a question is, how are economically and forcibly displaced peasant farmers, land workers, and agripreneurs, how are they protected, when they're in the cities and towns, whether that's in their home countries or in foreign countries, but especially in, these Western environments, Western societies. What often happens, and we're in the UK, but we live within this hostile environment, and a lot of the work we do at the civil society level, at the grassroots level, is to support all of those different people who are being displaced, to make sure that they're kind of, in the community, and there's no, there are no problems. How do we support them? How do we understand what they do? How do we do the greening and find them access to land, or support them in some way? How do we understand their needs? But actually, we're still working within a pyramid system, and it's very top down. So how do we get to that circle where everyone's working together to understand, but also to address the main issues are corporations and governments that are the ones that are causing a lot of these problems, but the ones at the grassroots are the ones that are then having to deal with that. It's like a burden on the systems. So how do we, rather than always looking at the grassroots to problem solve, how are we understanding them, but also addressing at the top what the fundamental issue is that's causing the displacement, that's causing the politicization, that's causing the issues? How do we work a bit better to join the dots?
Thank you very much, Dawn, for that very complex, very difficult, but very important question. Is there anybody who, I think there is no easy answer, but who wants to try to reflect on that, the question from Dawn?
Je peux?
I can, oui.
Yeah, you can also both. I give first the floor to Mounir Satouri, please.
Ouais, un petit mot.
Yes.
Alors, la question en réalité est simple. C'est la réponse efficace à la question qui est compliquée. Compliquée parce que le contexte politique et géostratégique de nos pays est ce qu'il est. Compliqué parce que la transformation en profondeur de nos politiques pour répondre à ces enjeux est nécessaire. Et entre le discours, le rappel des principes que je me suis permis de faire et la réalité concrète de nos politiques européennes et à l'échelle de l'État membre, il y a un gap, il y a un fossé. Et donc, moi, je fais partie de ceux qui affirment que nous avons une dette climatique envers un certain nombre d'habitants de cette planète. Nous avons, ces 50 dernières années principalement, un peu avant, vécu en Occident, vécu plutôt bien, sans compter, en dépensant de l'énergie, en changeant de vêtements tous les mois. Et nous avons accéléré le réchauffement climatique. qui met en péril et détruit les écosystèmes et détruit les espaces de vie et de travail pour les agriculteurs dans une autre partie du monde. Et nous avons une dette climatique envers ces populations. C'est ni de l'aide au développement, ni de la charité occidentale, ni de la générosité. C'est juste assumer notre part dans la dégradation des lieux de vie et des conditions de vie de ces populations-là. Mais quand vous voyez le discours politique aujourd'hui ambiant au sein de l'Union européenne, la progression de l'extrême droite, la peur de l'étranger, la réaction par rapport aux migrants, on est aujourd'hui très loin de cette responsabilité. Et c'est pour ça qu'il faut qu'on lutte et qu'on se mobilise. Les problèmes des agriculteurs en Europe ne sont pas créés par les gens de l'autre côté de la Méditerranée. C'est un système global qui est installé et qui dégrade la situation des gens ici comme là-bas. Et donc, c'est une transformation radicale du paradigme que nous devons opérer. Donc ça, c'est le grand défi politique et l'heure ne va pas dans le bon sens, mais il faut qu'on résiste et il faut qu'on continue à porter cette parole. Mais après, il y a la responsabilité très concrète de nos politiques. J'ai parlé d'un certain nombre de priorités. Tout à l'heure, je n'ai pas parlé, par exemple, du droit à l'accès aux semences. Le droit à l'accès aux semences répond à une problématique réelle de nos agriculteurs en Europe, mais elle répond aussi à une situation compliquée pour les agriculteurs de l'autre côté de la Méditerranée, principalement en Afrique. Et les décisions de l'Union européenne ne vont pas dans le bon sens. Moi, je fais partie de ceux qui demandent à ce que l'UE arrête de pousser les pays du Sud global et de l'Afrique en particulier à adopter des règles et des restrictions sur les propriétés intellectuelles, sur les semences, de favoriser ici chez nous l'échange de semences entre agriculteurs. C'est à la fois une réponse à la souveraineté d'exploiter pour nos agriculteurs, mais aussi une réponse à l'appauvrissement et à l'effondrement de la biodiversité. Donc, la question, elle est simple. Sa réponse en termes systématiques de multiplication des politiques à mettre en œuvre et de réalité politique et de rapport de force politique est complexe, mais c'est dans la difficulté qu'il faut tenir, qu'il faut résister, qu'il faut chercher des alliés. Et c'est pour ça que le travail entre les élus que nous sommes au sein des institutions, votre travail à vous en tant que représentant de la profession des agriculteurs, notre alliance avec la société civile ici et de l'autre côté de la Méditerranée est important.
Thank you very much, Munir Saturi, also for bringing in like the bigger picture. We have not addressed everything today, the climate crisis, the climate injustice, probably could call it, and also the global injustice in general. Thank you for bringing that in and also reminding that there is a political responsibility to address this. Thank you. I see another hand from, Geneviève. If you still want to add, please come in and then go to the next.
Yes, it was a very brief contribution to this discussion. We see that at the moment, the human rights are not very well respected by many countries, and that it is getting worse every day. So you know about the geopolitical global situation. And for us, I mean, for all the special rapporteurs and this human rights defenders, it is really important that Europe takes kind of a lead on fully respecting the human rights. And I see it is very important to have this discussion, to put together peasants, but also institutions and different levels of institutions. And I think, I come also from this European origin, it is important to mainstream human rights approach within the EU institutions. And at the moment, you have the two languages, the languages of business and somehow the languages of human rights and the legal approach. But it is really important to push for more human rights approach, to have more consideration to all types of farmers, small fisher, who haven't really been taken into consideration over the last periods of time. But this is with my former background, I can say this, but we see now that it is really important to maybe to change the mindset and be more proactive in the human rights approach.
Thank you very much, Geneviève, also for calling again on the mainstreaming and the implementation of the human rights approach and the UNDROP, and also the specific responsibility Europe has in this. I will pass the floor to Saray Martin. Please, Saray.
Gracias. Un poquito para reforzar también lo que comentaba el compañero y la compañera, y sobre la pregunta de las organizaciones bases y cómo proteger el campo, me gustaría decir pues que tenemos una deuda ecológica y climática y hay que actuar sobre ella. Por ejemplo, desde Mundubat, una de las cosas que hacemos es trabajar para fortalecer las organizaciones base. Creo que es esencial desde la base, desde lo local, poder encontrar espacios de reflexión, sobre todo para que sean conscientes de que el campesinado tiene derechos, porque me da la sensación que en muchos ámbitos ni siquiera son conscientes de que el campesinado en sí tiene sus derechos. Por lo que nosotras apostamos por fortalecer esas organizaciones bases, siempre en red, también y en alianzas, creo que son esenciales. Y la movilización pues también es esencial. Al final son como diferentes fases, ¿no? Primero fortalecer, formar, ser conscientes de que el campesinado, el movimiento campesino, las mujeres tienen derechos. Y luego ya el trabajo en red y por fin la movilización y la demanda a nivel local, global. También nosotras participamos en programas de defensores de derechos humanos y ahí entran también las personas que defienden los derechos humanos de la tierra, ¿no? Y creo que eso también es esencial, ser conscientes de que esos programas pues, se tienen que fomentar. Eso sería.
Thank you very much, Saray. Also, again, to be very concrete on what can be done to bring that human rights approach alive in peasants' rights in the daily work of our organizations. We have 3 minutes left. I will pass the floor back to Elena Schubert. And again, please make sure to be close to the micro so we can hear you well and the interpreters can do their work. Thank you.
Now, well.
Yes.
Yes. I wanted to say this very important point, very, very quick on the human rights. It's very important for me. I am equality coordinator in DG Agriculture, and across the Commission, every service has an equality coordinator, and we have equality task force in the Secretary General that makes sure that equality and non-discrimination elements and elements of the respect of fundamental rights and in every relevant piece of legislation and policy initiatives that the Commission adopts. On top of it, I would like to say that when we shaped our CAP 2023-2027, it is in our regulation that all partners, including civil society, has to be consulted. And secondly, we also have the legal requirement that in the monitoring committees, representatives of civil society organizations have to be present. And in this very, very, very light, I would also like to repeat that during the strategic dialogue that preceded the preparation of the vision, we have really made sure that all relevant stakeholders, including civil society organizations, were on board, that had a possibility to co-shape our dialogue and our communication and discussions on the future agriculture. So this is just very briefly from my side, and we will continue a very intensive and very fruitful dialogue with the civil society organization, because indeed fundamental rights are key. These are key values of the European Union, and we should stick to them, and we will stick to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elena Schubert. And time is running. We have 6 minutes left. I would like to give the floor to Jean before we come to the closing already of the event. Please, Jean.
Thank you very much, Sibyl. Yeah, we would need a lot more time to talk on such complex issues. I just wanted to come back on a few elements given here, reaction both from our participants and speakers. To say that sorry, I have something here. To say that the land observatory that is proposed and the work on land from the European Commission that we see at the moment is indeed quite positive in relation with the generational renewal issue. but that unfortunately, maybe we do not share the part say that the main issue to attract young farmers in farming would be access to land and finance. These are obviously very important elements, but in ECVC, in Via Campesina Europe, we do believe that the main issue is the issue of the revenue of farmers, and that the fact that at the moment it's almost impossible for small and medium-scale farmers to make a fair revenue from their work is the main problem. And on that specific point, until now, we see that there is a beginning of an answer coming and things coming up, which is great. We're really happy to see things on the UTP directive and this Common Market Organization. But we do think that this is the core issue of farming in Europe at the moment. And we do think that the current competitivity logic of the Commission is not good. As we often say in Via Campesina, we don't want to be competitive, or at least not competitive in a capitalist way. We want to be competitive to produce healthy and sustainable food. We want to be competitive using natural resources. We want to be competitive in the way that we create good and healthy food for the people. But we don't want to be in competition with the global market. And I think that's a big thing that we need to tackle at some point. And again, the free trade agreements are going in the exact wrong direction concerning this issue. Last but not least, we talked a lot about seeds and the push from the European Union and Commission for new genomic techniques and technology and digital technologies in general, we think is also a false solution and a dangerous one, because instead of helping young farmers to access the farming, we think it's going to be the opposite, actually, that these technologies will reinforce the power and the imbalance of power in the food chain. So these are definitely issues that we need to tackle. And maybe to conclude before giving the floor to my colleague Iya, just to say that in Via Campesina, we link everything. And we think that food sovereignty, as defined by Via Campesina, and agroecology, peasant-based agroecology, and UNDROP are three things that are deeply connected, and that you cannot develop one without the other, and that we fight for food sovereignty through peasant agroecology, and thanks to UNDROP, basically all this is really linked. So yeah, I think the systemic change that we talked about could actually start here, and I think Via Campesina is at the moment a very good movement because it envisions a hope of how we could proceed forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jean, for putting the dots together. And yeah, we are ready for this transformative change. And with that words, I will thank you from my side. I will give to Iya for closing words. Please, Iya.
Thank you, Jean. And before closing and highlighting the main points of this meeting, I want to express my gratitude to the organizers of this event for giving us the opportunity to hear these insightful and quite engaging presentations of our speakers, and also them for sharing their expertise around the topics and expressing their valuable thoughts in regards, and also for the participants who were really engaged in discussions, and we could point out and also discuss in depth the issues that are affecting the rights of peasants and all people who are involved in the agriculture in general. To conclude, as the meeting, as Jean pointed out in the beginning, the UN Declaration on Rights of Peasants and Other People Working in Rural Areas was adopted by the majority of the states, and therefore it is even more crucial that decision makers at all levels, including local, national, regional, and global, have responsibility to ensure its effective implementation. And also it's very important that EU aligns its internal and external policies within the UNDROP, especially taking into consideration the peasants' concerns, which include trade agreements, for example, rural development initiatives, international cooperation efforts, and so on. And also in this regard, it's very important to work with the UN Working Group on Peasants' Rights, and many thanks for that to Genevieve. And I would just, in short, because we are out of time, just outline the importance of peasants in food security and environmental protection. And also, I cannot point, I'm not able not to outline the projects described in Spain and Switzerland, and how important is the importance of UNDROP, especially for the women youth engagement in the agriculture, and also preservation of the child rights, so to say. Thank you, everyone, and a special thanks for our facilitator and interpreters for giving possibility to have such a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.